Good morning, TubeUbers. Well, like I said before, we're going to start a new series on this. I know normally I work on the EcoDiesel, and, well, I can only go so far on the EcoDiesel right now because there's really nothing wrong with it now. But we're going to start a new, how can I put it, phase. That's it, a new phase. Those that watched the last video know that I want to start something different here. We're going to do a couple different projects. Now, the other project is still a ways off, I guess, because that involves somebody else, and I got to wait for their timeline and, when they're ready to do it and all the stuff that they need to do. Which, cool, we'll get to that one. And it's also going to lead him into doing something, so look for that. And in this series, I'm going to just start calling this the 82 Ram Reviving a Shelf because, well, it's been a shelf. Now, this truck started out life as, your basic farm truck. I mean, it was purchased new by a guy. He absolutely loved this truck. It was, just your basic, like most Gen 1 Dodge Rams, an implement. But he didn't really use it much like an implement. It was his cruise around, do whatever he needed to do kind of truck. So, little history on these trucks, because not too many people give histories on these, and not even too many people revive these trucks. I mean, they're starting to become an aftermarket for the what they call Gen 1s. Which Gen 1 lasted from 1973 till 1993, 72, 73, somewhere around there. That was the implementation of this body. But this body actually started in 1982, but its generation goes from 73 to 93. Most notably, 93 to 86, I think. From 86 to 93, those are the ones everybody covets because of the Cummins. They want the Gen 1 Cummins 12 valve, mechanical everything, one wire to start it, and you're off and running with, whatever. Just basically a bulletproof 1-ton truck. Okay. This is a 1982. This body style was introduced in 1981. It was the first year. 81 was the first year to have the Ram designation instead of the D100, 200, 300, D150, 250, 350 designation, which carried on later in the Gen 2s as the 1500, 2500, 3500, 1-ton, half-ton, 3/4-ton trucks. So 1-ton, 150, and then 3/4-ton, 250, on and on and on. This is a D, which designates it as two-wheel drive. So, anyway, and you have to forgive me, I don't do editing. I do everything on the fly because I don't have editing materials. I don't have a way to edit. I'm fairly new at this, so you're going to have to forgive me. Some of my facts are wrong, so don't kill me. I'm pretty close. I had to learn a lot about this truck when I got it because I had no idea. It was an 82 Dodge Ram. I love Dodges. I've owned now 4, including this one and the one that's out in my driveway. I've had a Dakota. I've had this one. I've had a Gen 2. And then I've got my Gen 4. And my brothers all, have owned Dodges. My dad owned Dodges. That's why he bought this truck, because this truck came from my father. He was the second owner. And when he got it, the body had all been redone, and it had been, new motor stuffed in it, new trans stuffed in it. Well, I shouldn't say new. Let's say freshened trans and freshened engine. Kind of done on the cheap because the original owner, whose brother owned the shop that did all the work, wanted to get rid of the truck because he had too many vehicles or whatever. So my dad saw this freshly painted 1982 sitting in the guy's shop and was like, "Hey, what's up with that truck?" And he's like, "Oh, it's my brother's truck. He wants to sell it." So my dad got in touch with him, bought the truck, and cobbled. We'll put it that way. Because the guy that owned the shop was a privateer. He had a shop that was public for several years, got screwed over so many times, he just said, "Screw it, I'm not doing any more work for anybody except people that pay." And of course, he had two levels. You had the "I'll fix it correctly," or "I can make it run." Well, this one fell under the "let's make it run" category. Um, but the history on it was it's a 1982. It came with a slant six, 908 transmission, and I think 355 gears. I think that was the standard gear for the six cylinder. So when the motor blew up or lost compression or whatever had happened to it, this guy's brother went back in his scrap pile of whatever in the backyard and yanked the Chrysler motor out, yanked the Chrysler transmission out, threw it in the truck. There you go. And I don't think Jerry knew what he had. So I was told it was a 318. Okay, that's fine. For my dad, it was great. It ran like a 318. Whatever. All it needed to do was take him down to his buddy's house and into town once a week, and that's really all it needed to do. So, okay, my dad could deal with it, and he loved the truck. He drove the truck until probably 2008, and even then he still drove it a little bit, but he didn't drive it. He didn't drive as much after he had some health issues and just couldn't drive it. And finally, about 2012, he was like, "I need to get rid of it." So I told him, I said, "Okay, fine." My brother convinced him to get rid of it because it was starting to be a pain in the ass to start. It was starting to be troublesome and blah, blah, blah. So I came to him and I said, "Okay, well, I'll take some pictures of it. We'll throw it on Craigslist." And he's like, "No." He goes, "It's your truck. Do whatever you want with it." Sold. Because my dad knew I always wanted a toy. Ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted something to play with. Just go out, screw around, take the car cruises, just drive. Okay. So it started out as maybe I'll restore it. And then no, we're not going to restore this because there's no numbers matching motor. There's no numbers matching transmission. I don't even know if it's got the numbers matching rear end. It doesn't have half the stuff it came from the factory with on it anymore. The air conditioning's gone and blah, 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 blah. So it was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to take this in my direction. So started out, brought the truck home, drove it around for a year and a half or so, kind of the way it was, which wasn't good. It was, like I said, cobbled together. It was parts that don't belong on a truck. The motor came from a car, the transmission came from a car, everything came from a car, and it was just kind of stuffed in here. So, well, long story short, comes time for inspection. I'm like, okay, I'm tearing this truck down before inspection, and I'm just going to figure it out and trying to get it as good as I could for that time. So everybody's like, "Oh, you need to do a diesel swap in that. Oh, you need to yank that 318 out. You need to do this and this and this." And a diesel swap would be a great idea, but the motor's been freshened up. It doesn't have very many miles on it. I haven't put very many miles on it since I've had it. Hell, it's got new exhaust I put in 2012, and it still has the stickers on it. They haven't even burnt off yet. So I don't drive the truck very much when it is running. It is just kind of a, roll out on Saturday morning, putt around for a little while, go have some fun with it, and then, put it back in the garage. So I decided, okay, since this isn't going to be a restoration, and, Chrysler did some stuff in the 70s and early 80s, that they kind of lost touch on a little bit, especially in the 60s and 70s. The 60s they had a sport truck, which, not too many manufacturers had. Chevrolet had one for a while. Ford, I don't even know if Ford did a sport truck in the 60s, but in the 60s, Chrysler came out with a sport truck, with bucket seats and manual transmission, small Hemi engine with the baby Hemi and console, and it was a legit sport truck. That didn't last very many years, and then they came out later on in the 60s with what they called the Dude package, which I don't remember what that all involved. And then in the mid 70s, they came out with the big block Warlocks. 440 could be had in 4-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive, step bed. Really neat trucks. And then their last iteration of what I call a real sport truck, mass market sport truck, was the Little Red Express, which had the 360 Interceptor motor in it, made more power than a Pontiac Firebird, made more power than most exotic cars at that time. And it had the dual stacks, and those trucks just always looked cool to me. I've always liked those trucks. So I thought, hey, here's something that was missing in the early 80s up until, they made one iteration, which was the Baja truck, which they only made a handful of. So I thought, hey, I'm going to do a theme truck. I'm going to make a theme truck that, fits me and what I would have liked to have seen, which maybe it would have sold, maybe it wouldn't have. Especially after I found out what was in this truck, and this is why I'm not doing a diesel swap or anything crazy like that, because one, the finances just are not there. I'm not a YouTuber by profession. I drive a truck, so I don't have a whole bunch of money to throw at things. And it's not like I'm sponsored, because I am not. So one thing is, this one has a 360 small block, not the 318 like I originally thought. So, okay, got a good base. Got a 360 small block. Got a 727 transmission. Okay, here's a good base. So, I decided to make this into a sport truck of my own. Make it period correct as I can, or at least how I figured the truck could have come from the factory and maybe even sold. Just with some, backyard technology and a budget. So, one thing I did was, of course, I did the two-tone crappy paint job, which that was just kind of a test just to see how it would look. Kind of following on the Charger theme, that they had in the early 70s, where you had the stripe down the side, and, can't do a hockey stripe because there's no real C-pillar. Shortened up mirrors, which are chrome. So these actually are aftermarket Ford mirrors that I've mounted to the original brackets that had the big old hangout mirror on it that I did not enjoy at all. I have new wheels for it, and tires are new, but the wheels, they're actually, if you go back and look for 89 Dodge Dakota Sport wheels, they're actually Dodge Dakota Sport wheels. They fit the bolt pattern on the truck, but I'm going to have to get spacers for the front because the calipers catch on it and, they don't work. The other thing is the interior. I did something a little strange in the interior. Because at the time I had a Gen 2 extended cab truck, and I really loved those seats because they had the integrated seat belt and everything else. They were high back. You could do whatever you wanted with them. They were adjustable. They had the center console, which you didn't have with the barn door bench that this thing had. It had the parked bench with the horse saddle blanket, cover. It was pure absolute farmer. This was an absolute farmer truck. So it had a tan interior in it. You may be kind of having some hard time seeing in here. Let me go get a light So that way maybe I can help you out a bit. Because it's in my garage, I'm trying to charge the battery. Because the next thing I'm going to do is try and get the motor running, which that ought to be fun. So anyhow, the truck itself, I redid the interior a little bit, added some go fast bits to it, not anything special, but pardon me. Yeah, I should edit that out, but I can't. Some go fast bits and just something that you don't see very often in those trucks, because really nobody ever fixes them up. Most of the time they've been used by highway departments or by, farmers or whatever. So, okay. First thing you have, the Gen 2 seats that are covered in cat hair, thanks to my garage cat. I left the window down one day and he went in there and took a nappy poo. Then I put a B&M ratchet shifter in it, which is awesome. I absolutely love that. New gray carpeting, black dash, much like Chrysler did in the 80s. A little tachometer down there that does actually work. Got some gauges up here for oil and temp, which were added in by the guy that put the motor in it. And, it's still your pretty basic. And then the JVC stereo I added to it with Bluetooth and cell phone connectivity and all that. Doesn't have a CD player in it. So it plays media. I've got 2 speakers up here in the dash mounted together, and then I've got 2 speakers back here behind the seat. So, okay sound. Now, another thing is, these trucks usually didn't come with black interior, so this has all been done by moi. Which, it works. The truck had some pretty nasty body damage on this quarter panel, and literally in the same spot on the other quarter panel, so yeah, I had to test my hand with not doing body work for 20 years. Let's see how that went. It went that's the other thing between the theme is everything's blacked out in the front except the chrome. So that's kind of the theme thing. This is all charcoal painted because it's been damaged here and a couple other spots. So screw it. I'll just repaint it. And then here we have a 360 small block from a 1973 something. I know that because I looked at the casting numbers on it. So it's from a 73. It's from a car. I don't know what kind of car or anything like that. I know the transmission's from a car because there's trucks and cars' transmissions were a tad bit different, even though they intermingle with one another, obviously. But because the cars' engines were on a cradle, they put a support, looks almost like a B, molded into the bottom of the transmission towards the tail shaft so that they could grab it and hold on to it and keep the engine and K-frame level until it went into the car. That's what this has. It has that transmission in it. So I know it's from a car, not a truck, because the trucks don't have that. They didn't need it. The engine and transmission were mounted to the frame, then the frame met the body. So I know it's from a car, so it's not really torquey, but it's pretty quick. Even though it's a 2-barrel, which sucks. Gets decent gas mileage for a big block or a small block of 70s era. And then some of the other things I did with it, because the exhaust was thrashed, trashed, hashed, and bashed. It's got, thrush headers. It's running through a set of Shorty turbo mufflers. down there. Some thrust turbo mufflers. There's the drive shaft that is part of the reason why the truck is not in running condition. But comes out just short of the cab because it was actually made for a short bed instead of a long bed, which I kind of like that, especially with the tips. Because I really, my dream, because nothing sounds better than a Mopar 360 coming out of some side pipes. Oh, that is just a sound. Nice little burble. It kind of has that. But I wanted kind of the side pipe thing coming out of this truck, which it sounds awesome when it fires up. I love this thing when it fires up. It fires up, it just makes me smile. And then I go get gas. So this is what I'm working with now. A lot of things have already been replaced because I have had this on the road. This was a running and driving car until last year, so really reviving it, it's probably not going to be that much of an issue. We're not talking, roadkill. It's been in the junkyard for 35 years, and hey, it's going to be, we're going to have to do this, and this. No, the truck's already got a new carburetor, new alternator, new voltage regulator, new heater hoses, new radiator, of course the new exhaust, some cobbling of wiring, new plugs, wires, cap, rotor, timing reset. Still does need some work. It's got the wrong water pump pulley on it. So actually, if you look at my alternator, it's way off. I need to get a three row for the water pump pulley, because this truck originally did have air conditioning in it, and obviously so did the car. So I need to get that, and besides that, this is supposed to go over that. So my new belts hanging over there for the last 5 years, they won't fit on this application because, like the power steering, they're supposed to go over both of those and then go to their assigned accessory that they're running. I need to get that. My ultimate dream for this would be kind of make it a 340. It's always been my dream. I want to get some 340 because a 360 is basically based off a 340. A little bit different heads. Definitely a different cam. I would love to have 340 heads. I know, good luck finding them because now they're, everybody's rebuilding Chargers and they're just worth a buttload if they're original 340 and blah, 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 blah. So I'd really like to eventually find some 340 heads. 4-barrel intake. I'd love to do a Sniper fuel injection system because I hate carburetors. This carburetor, even though it was rebuilt, has always just given me fits. If I don't start this truck every day, it is such a pain in the butt to start because it almost acts like all the fuel runs away. That's another thing too, new fuel pump. So it's just been very annoying. So I'd love to get a Sniper EFI for it. That would be ultimate, but I'd like to get, now I've done research, get the 340 heads. So it wouldn't be a true 340. It'd be snappier than what a 360 is because I would put the cam from a 4-speed 68. What 68? Yeah, 68. 68 340 gives a little bit of a lope and makes throttle response a little snappier. And could you imagine that? The smaller combustion chambers of the 340, the cam, the snappier cam, and fuel injection. Ooh, this would be a fun toy. The other thing would be take the transmission, put a shift kit in it. There's really nothing wrong with the transmission, other than it has no fluid in it right now because the drive shaft's out. And those that are worried about me first starting this with the transmission not having fluid in it, don't worry about that. The pumps in these don't start circulating unless you put the truck in neutral. As long as it's in park, the transmission pump doesn't pump. So I'm not going to burn up my transmission pump or ruin my transmission. So we're good there. I can actually do a first start on this without having to deal with it. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the tour. So we're gonna let the battery charge a little bit, and part 2 of this will be me actually firing the truck up. But I just wanted to give a little history lesson on it. Let me know what you think. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a subscription if you let somebody know that, hey, there's a guy out there trying to redo a Gen 1 Ram. If you know somebody that's a Ram fan, and you know, I've never seen anybody redo one of these. Now, granted, these are going to be slow videos because, again, I have a budget. It's my budget, so it's tiny. Well, it'd be a tiny thing. So this is going to be slow increments, and it might be once a week or once every 2 weeks. So please be patient. Just follow along. And then when we get the other videos going of the camper restoration, we'll bring those to you, and we'll introduce you to that guy. His name's John, and he's going to be looking for lots of support because he's going to do a lot of neat things. Just be looking for him. Good day. Goodbye. Have a good day, guys.